I'm going to throw out there that the biggest difference between a DIYer carpenter and a pro carpenter on a job is the pro's got all of his tools right around his waist. He knows where they are, he knows where they go. He doesn't have to worry about where he left them. The DIYer is walking back and forth thinking, where did I lay down my tape? Did I drop my pencil? And where am I going to find the nails that I've just got to have to get this job done? I went to Lowe's yesterday and I spent $109 on this setup, which is adequate. I've been using this one for decades and it cost probably $500 to set this up. I'm going to show you why I picked these tools, some of the tricks that a guy gets into his head and into his hands over time, and we'll talk about, gee, do I need to spend $100? Do I need to spend $500? Or is there a way to get the same utility and the same efficiency for a lot less money? Okay, so the first thing is the bag itself. At Lowe's, Cobalt. This was $40. Okay, it's leather. I'm pretty sure it's leather. The stitching looks all right. It's an apron type. It just goes in front of you. I think if you went to work on a job site with this, you might get 3 years out of it because you will tear it apart. But if you're a DIYer, it's going to last you probably until your teenage son takes it over to his girlfriend's place and leaves it there, right? But it's okay. It's okay. And I'm a guy that prefers leather to nylon. So this is a set of Occidental bags. This is the last set I'm ever going to use. I think I bought this 25 years ago, which is way longer than I ever got out of any other set, including a set of Occidental bags when I was young and strong and ran a lot. This is a Buckaroo belt, very comfortable. There are reasons that sometimes you need to spend $300 or $400 or $500 on a rig. Now, there are also reasons that you don't. But in the meantime, I just like it. It's become an extension of the way I work. You can put rivets in it. If you put a rivet in this, yeah, you might have to, but it might not be worth it. So the bags, front mount, side mount, whatever, depends on the work you're doing. But if you're a DIYer, something like this is going to speed you up. All right, I'm going to start talking about some of what I'm looking at here. And I'm going to start with this Irwin straight line chalk box, mostly to get it out of the way. This wasn't much. It was maybe the least expensive one that Lowe's had in there. Irwin is probably all right. This is a Tajima. This was given to me by a friend in Eugene. This is a Cadillac version. This is a Chevy. This is a Ford. It will get the work done, but here's the mistake everybody makes. They get their brand new chalk box, and I'm not going to open this up, but you'll figure it out. You get your brand new chalk box. Actually, doesn't matter. And you open it up, and you just pump it full of chalk. You put in all the chalk that you can because you don't want to run out, and then you pull out about 10 feet of string, and it jams up. If you put too much chalk in your box when it's new, you're going to spend about 45 minutes shaking it out, unwinding the string, and cleaning up a mess that you wouldn't have if you pull out about 30 feet of chalk line, brand new white chalk line, put just, a couple of tablespoons of chalk in there and reel it up. And then pull out the same amount or a little more and put in a little more chalk and reel it up. And now that thing's going to get you up till lunchtime, and then you can put enough chalk in it to get the work done. Don't overfill your chalk box. Now, I glossed over something that was probably a mistake, and that is, you might be thinking, well, why do I need a chalk line? I've got a straight edge, I've got a pencil, I can just mark it. Yes, but you can't do that on something 16 feet long or 12 feet long. It's hard to do vertically. You can't do it on carpet, and if you have white chalk in a brand new chalk box, you can pop a white line on carpet or a bright white line on a drywall wall and then just brush it off. You don't have a stain. But let me tell you this. Here's a pro tip. If you've got red chalk in a chalk box, never take it inside of anybody's house. Never snap it on a piece of concrete that's going to be permanent. And don't put it on your concrete forms either unless you want it to telegraph onto the concrete itself. Red chalk and black is indelible, so be careful. Now, before we bounce off of chalk boxes, and I'm not taking this out, but this Tajima will demonstrate this. They double as a plumb bob. They hang straight down. Gravity is so dependable. And some of them have a very pronounced point right at the bottom, so you can get a very good plumb bob reading. Tajima is not quite that, but so what, right? So you got a plumb bob for a long vertical line. You've got a chalk line for making marks on almost anything if you're careful, and you better pay attention where that chalk goes. All right, next thing, since it's on this side of the bag, a 25-cent pencil. Repping the brand, Lowe's, okay. And I don't remember how much this thing was, $3 or $4. It's on the receipt. I don't care. Point is, a utility knife will cut all sorts of things. It'll get you into a package of lumber. It'll cut a string line if it needs to be cut. It will trim your fingernails. It'll dig out a sliver. And most of the time, for a carpenter, it's used to sharpen a pencil. We've got a video about this too, and it's counterintuitive. I don't typically sharpen away from me like you're always supposed to do when you're using a knife. I typically roll it around and use my thumb to control and get the leverage and controllability of sharpening like that. You can check out that video if you want. You can sharpen your pencil any way that suits you, but peas and carrots, right? Keep it not sharp, but workable. Keep the blade pulled back, keep it stuffed into your bags, and it's an ace in the hole. And this thing has a lot more uses than you might think. You can check out the video we did about why Carpenter pencils are flat. Okay, now a torpedo level is usually useless for a framer. It's usually helpful for a form carpenter. If you're setting forms, it's just not bad, especially if you're doing curb and gutter, that sort of thing. It's nice to be able to check, level when level doesn't have to be super precise. True confession, this is not in the $109 purchase. I didn't see one, I didn't think of it, I just grabbed this one off the shelf and dropped it in here because I love the color in a set of bags. But a torpedo level, I don't know, you can spend anywhere from probably, $3 at Harbor Freight to $30 if it is a Stabila. I don't know if you can get a Stabila torpedo level for $30, but anyway, sometimes they're a handy tool. All right, let me jump right to the meat and potatoes. If you're going to be a carpenter, you are going to be identified by your hammer more often than not. I think I spent about $4 extra to get an Estwing for this video. This is, I think, a 16-ounce, smooth face. It would be kind of a good all-around hammer, although they would laugh at you on a framing job, but on a finished job or any sort of moderate work. But there are some advantages to an Estwing for a beginner. Number one, you are not going to tear the wooden handle out of the head when you try to pull a nail because you just can't break a one-piece forged steel hammer. So yes, you can buy less expensive hammers, you can buy way more expensive hammers, you can get different configuration heads. But one of the reasons that this appeals to me, besides the fact that there's the one I was looking for. But besides the fact that I've got a 22-ounce Estwing for form work that I've had for 20 years. Like I said, you just can't break them. This was my dad's. It's the same hammer. It's the same hammer. So there's an emotional attachment. But utility and durability, are they worth the money? Yes. Now, if you've never picked up a hammer before and you're looking at that little narrow steel neck and you're thinking, that's weird, it's not weird because you never have to choke up that far. And by the way, I get a lot of flack from guys when they watch me hammer because sometimes I'm not holding the hammer by the very end. And I hear all kinds of stories about Granddad used to say, if you're not going to use that whole handle, why don't you cut the end of it off and let me use it? All right. Yeah, if you really have to fetch a mighty blow, well, get all the lever arm on your hammer you can. But in a lot of cases, the ability to sort of choke, you're not always swinging for the fence, right? But when you got to swing for the fence, that's why they put that little swell on the end, so you know where to stop. Okay, let's work on our way on around this little leather apron. Not bags. These are bags. This is an apron. This was the quasi-budget solution at Lowe's for a tape. It's 25 feet, 26 feet. This is a 26-footer. It's got the feature where you have to tell it to come home instead of just letting go of it. How's that even done? Okay, there it locks tight. Oh, there it is. Being a Stanley tape measure man, that's not my style, but I think that'll if you're going to be working framing off the ground somewhere, you need one of these things that'll stand out at least 7 feet, like the standard Stanley 1-inch tape. Oh, almost. Fat Max will stand out there about 11 feet. But I don't know, this was $4 or $5 and probably worth every penny for a while. All right, so this chisel, I think I spent a little more on than I needed to, but it's a Jorgensen chisel. That's pretty good. And you're asking yourself, gosh, Wadsworth, I'm a DIYer in the 21st century. Why do I need a chisel? There are a zillion reasons to carry a chisel. It's not just for the stereotypical craftsman, Geppetto chiseling out Pinocchio. There are a million ways and reasons to use and carry a chisel. 3/4 inch is a pretty good width to start with. See, the Jorgensen is longer. It's a little pry bar, it's a little shim, it's a little scraper. The only way, besides losing it, to wreck a chisel is to overheat it when you sharpen it. This is tool steel, and it has been tempered probably to a bronze temper, pretty hard, not too brittle, but hard enough to do the work. And if you sharpen this on a mechanical sharpener, and the color, it begins to turn a yellow or a bronze or a blue color, you have hurt your chisel. So when you're sharpening, you can either use a file or a stone, or very, very carefully, an electric grinder of some sort. Part of a carpenter's tool setup has to be something that'll give you a square line, at least a square line. And so when I'm looking at the shelf in Lowe's and when I'm out on the job myself, most of the time, not all the time, I'm carrying a speed square or its equivalent because it goes right there into that slot on my bags. But at Lowe's the other day, a Swanson speed light was like $4.50 or something. It's a name brand, but boys, it is plastic, but it'll do a lot of work. It doesn't store in an apron very well. And so I thought about getting one of these for this demo, but these are like 10 or 12 bucks. But these aprons have a little sheath holster, so a tri-square, a combination square will ride right there. So figure that out for yourself. It depends on what you've got, what you want, what your rig is going to be. So let's talk just a little more about how you might get set up like this for a lot less money. Now, the other thing I did yesterday was I stopped by one pawn shop and 2 secondhand stores. And I will tell you, as you might already expect, that is a way to save some money and maybe get a better quality tool. Here's what I picked up with those 3 stops. This apron, as you can tell, is very similar to the one that is brand new, only there's a lot more rivets and the leather's better. And buddy, she's been rode hard and put away a little bit wet. But, if you want to show up on a job looking like you have experience, you can fake that with your bags and with your tools. On the other hand, if you want to show up saying, look, I don't know anything, so please go easy and train me, then show up with new ones. And the middle ground is buy a set of new bags 6 months ahead of time and drag them around behind the car for a little while or something. I'm kidding. But be aware that you will be judged by the look of your rig. So this Estwing hammer, which is exactly the same one I've been talking about, was $8. The set of bags was $10. The chisel was $3. The utility knife was $1. The Irwin chalk box, minus the little hook on the end, and halfway full of red chalk, was $1. The speed square was $3. Bought a new 16-foot tape, which is not long enough, but it's all that will fit in that pocket. This illustrates the same thing I was talking about, that if you don't have room in an apron for a speed square, the tri-square will dangle on the side. Pencil I had on. So anyway, I think this added up to about 30 or 36 bucks. And I think if I was starting out again, this would be the way I would do it. It's not the way I did it when I was 19. When I was 19, I went into my dad's workshop and I grabbed his apron and all of his tools, and I went to work for Gary Wagner. Gary Wagner was my first job here. And at the first paycheck, I went down to Bi-Mart and I kept my dad's apron and I bought my own little set of hand tools, only one of which do I still own. I'll show you that in a minute. But it's worth something. It's worth something to not have every tool you own be brand new. It's worth something to buy tools that are good enough to last for a while. So you need to sort of not simply respond to the impulse of the moment. If you think you're going to go to work as a carpenter, start looking for the tools before you have to go to work on Monday. On the other hand, if Friday night you get hired and Monday you're showing up, well, you know you're in a bind. The elephant in the living room is, I didn't mention Harbor Freight. I stopped by there yesterday after I was at Lowe's, and Harbor Freight killed Lowe's, at least on price and on appearance. Now, I've been burned at Harbor Freight enough that I hear everybody telling me that their quality's getting better, and maybe. But every time I pick up something there, it feels like I'm picking up a fireworks box, which looks so good, and then you light the fuse, and 30 seconds later you throw it away. I don't know. Some of their stuff looks good, some of their stuff works good, and you can walk out of there with a brand new setup for probably $50 or $55. So you got to roll the dice and take your chances. You got to decide, am I in this as a weekend warrior? And so the least expensive solution is the one I'm going to take. Do you think that, man, I'm having a hard enough time with my confidence and I don't want my wife to think that I am Fred Flintstone trying to do something really great. I want to look the part. All right, then think about those thoughts. When you get a chance, buy something that you'll be able to pass down to your kids and your grandkids. You know, something that is worthwhile. If you can, there's value in that. But you've heard me say this so many times you're sick of it. The real value is in doing the best darn job you can. And doing the best darn job you can happens if you want to do the best darn job you can. And so whether this is your first time or you've been doing it until you've got some fingers cut off, show up with the intention of doing nice work, will you? And that's where the reward comes in. That when you're done, you look over your shoulder as you're going out the door or turning out the lights or driving your truck off the job, you can look back and say, yeah, I built that. There's a satisfaction in that you can't get any other way. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman. Keep up the good work.